Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of On the Mark with Mark Hamade right here on 95.5 The Rock, Salina's true rock station. I'm Morgan Lillick. I'm your host, joined as always by Mark Hamade. Mark is the COO of PKM Steel here in Salina. Mark, how's the afternoon treating you?
Excellent. I'm doing well, Morgan. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we always appreciate you coming into the studio. Look forward to some great discussion here this evening for our listeners. And tonight, we are talking about planning for success. Now, this is going to be crucial. Whether you're taking this to the next level in your business or whether you're just looking to improve your life, you've got to have a plan to get you on the road. Mark, first off, I'm going to ask you a very generalized question. How do you plan for success?
Well, Morgan, that's a great question. Planning is an ongoing process, and so is success. So I'm planning every day, every hour, every minute. I'm always planning.
Now, when you make your plan, how far out do you try to plan? I know you have to adjust your plan each and every day. Different things come up. You have to adjust that. But in a perfect world, how far out do you have planned ahead?
Well, I think it depends on what you're looking at. If you're in college and you're looking at your career, you want to plan 5 years ahead. If you're looking at accomplishing a task in 6 months, then you want to start planning right away. So it really depends on what you're planning for. If it's your life and your career, you want to plan at least 5 years ahead. If you're looking at the economy right now in your business, you want to keep tweaking that plan every 3 to 4 months because right now the economy is so volatile and everything is changing very rapidly and quickly.
Personally, for me, I have a day-to-day planner that I update every day as our lead business development executive at Rockingham Radio, and I have plenty of stuff on the docket for tomorrow. I've got stuff extending through the rest of the year. My plan extends to February of 2014, just on my day-to-day planner, things that I know I have coming up, things that I got to make sure I don't miss. And if you don't have those planned out ahead of time and you get really busy, you have a lot on your plate, it makes it really easy for stuff to begin to fall through the cracks. So you have to have a plan to be able to avoid those pitfalls and to move forward without dropping the ball. Now, Mark, do you have a grand overall plan that you break down with smaller task planners, like a daily plan, a weekly plan that feeds into your grand overall plan? Tell us a little bit about the structure of your planning system.
Well, I structure every day accordingly, and I'm very, very big on doing things the same way. So one of the first thing I do is I have a leather-bound book, and I write down every task I have every day, and I move that task that I don't accomplish to the next page and the next day. I'm very methodical in that sense, and I have a leather-bound book from every company I've been at for every task I've done throughout the years that I can go back and look for. And to answer your question as far as do I break it down? No, I look at the task and I look at when I need to get it done, and I try to get it done as quickly and as rapidly as possible. Otherwise, it doesn't get accomplished.
And there's a good point for all of our listeners out there. It doesn't necessarily matter how you have things planned out, whether you plan on your day-to-day, whether you plan long-term, a month down the road, a year down the road, 5 years down the road. What's important is having that plan. Whatever suits your business model, whatever suits, say you're an employee out at a major corporation here, whatever your day-to-day operations are, you have to have planned everything special that you're going to face on a given day that you don't typically run into. Say you're working the third shift out on the line. You know your typical day-to-day, but there's a major shipment coming in. You know you're going to have to plan for that a couple weeks in advance. Make sure, I know it sounds very simple, but you have to have your game plan ready to roll. You can't just wait for that shipment to come in and be like, oh, it's here. What do I do now? Because then you're already behind the 8 ball and you're already trailing your competitors who are out there planning each and every day. They know what's coming in. They got the shipment coming in. They've had a plan ready to go ahead of time. It's up to you to plan for your future success for whatever your business model, whether you're an employer, an employee, a small business, a huge corporation, whatever that is, having a plan is vital to your success. Now, Mark, talk a little bit about what advantages are going to come along for the people who have planned accordingly compared to those that do try to fly by the seat of their pants in their day-to-day jobs.
Well, I do want to say one thing. I do believe, and I'm going to take it in a different route.
Okay.
Plans are useless. It's the planning that's the most important thing. Because when you're planning, you're putting the plan together and you're seeing the nuances of what's right, what could go wrong, and so forth. Too many people get handed a plan or do a plan so quickly and they end up failing. A lot of failures occur, and that's because they think just because you have a plan, it's enough. It really isn't. Being busy does not always mean real work. Production, accomplishment, and results, that is the key, the results that you do. And flying by the seat of your pants can be productive if you are planning that quickly in your head. So some people are very good at processing information in their head and putting the plan and going through. I've done that. If you can do that well, you still are planning and you have a plan. But it's about the planning to get to point A to point B. So I always work backwards. What is the end result? Then from the end result, you plan backwards and you're able to accomplish that. You have to know where you're going. And then you have to know why you're going there. Then you put the planning in process. Then you can have the plan that can be effective, efficient, and lead you to success. So success is the concentration of planning it.
Absolutely, and I'll second that. The planning that I do on a day-to-day basis, that's my groundwork. Does the plan change each and every day? You bet it changes every day, and that's when you have to be ready to fly by the seat of your pants. But you have that plan in place, you have your groundwork available, something that you can build on and utilize going forward, and then, like you said, after the job is done, you go back, you analyze the results. What went right? Where did things go wrong? What can I work on to improve in the future to make sure that my next plan that I have coming up is even better than the one I have here? It's a never-ending process, and it's something that you do on a regular day-to-day basis. Would you agree, Mark?
I would totally agree. I mean, it's an ongoing process, whether it's planning to take a shower, whether it's planning to brush your teeth. Regardless of what it is, it's an ongoing process, and you've got to fit it in. You know, in my daily schedule, I spend 5 to 10 minutes per day to talk to family. I spend about an hour to contact people I value and trust around the country and ask them for advice. I take aside every hour 10 to 15 minutes to write down my thoughts and where I need to go and my tasks. I'm very methodical in doing certain things every day and doing them right. I also am very good about when I'm doing emails or checking my emails and all of that. I don't do that and answer the phone. There are only certain times in my day where I answer the phone. Other times I will not answer the phone regardless of what it is. I don't believe in multitasking. I think it's BS that people that say, I'm a great multitasker. There is no such thing as being a great multitasker. It's about finishing the task at hand. Now, can you finish this task and move on to the next one and work on 2 tasks and finish one and go through the other one? Yes. But to truly be effective and efficient, you've got to fully concentrate on what you're doing and do it to the best of your ability and then move on. So I am not so big on actually doing 6 things at the same time. And those people that tell me they're great multitaskers, that doesn't put warmness in my heart. I'll put it that way.
I understand where you're coming from there, Mark. At my job here, I guess you would call it multitasking, what I do a lot. I mean, when you're trying to do 5 or 6 different things, but it's not a matter of doing them all at one time. It's a matter of, say you have 6 different things that all need done. Now, it's a matter of taking them one by one, giving them each the individual attention they deserve, and then being able to reach your goal or your achievement that you need for each task, and being able to go above and beyond those goals, going the extra mile like we always like to talk about here. And that's something that I try to do on a regular basis, because I'm going to have 5 or 6 different things that all need done, but I can't do them all at one time, because then none of them get done right. You gotta put your focus and your attention to each individual thing to make sure that it's done right before moving on.
Which, Morgan, to me is not multitasking, and that's a good way of doing it. Multitasking to me is if you are on the computer right now working on a marketing plan and you're on the phone with your girlfriend at the same time. That is multitasking, and that is what I'm against.
If you're on the phone with your girlfriend, you're not going to be able to be putting the proper effort into accomplishing your marketing plan, and then your marketing plan is going to suffer from it. I mean, honestly, take the time, talk to your girlfriend after you have your work done. I've had an employee before that his girlfriend will call during the workday. It's happened many times, and I've had a talk with him more than once. Like, look, this is something that can't go on. You have to let her know that during the workday, you're working, and that your time is valuable at the office. Once the day is over and it's time to go home, then it's a great time to chat with her. But during the day, you got to let her know not to call. He's let her know, and she gets upset. What would you say to people that can't understand that concept?
I think in a sense you can do a little bit of both. You know, everybody has a break and everybody has lunch, and you need to decompress. So at that particular lunch or break, if you want to call your loved one or whatever, I'm all for that. But then there's a time to focus on the task at hand and your job. And your job is what brings you your livelihood. It's what pays the bills. It's what supports your girlfriend, husband, wife, etc. And you've got to be able to focus on that task at hand. If you are at work and you're listening to your loved one, you're really not giving them the proper time, the proper respect, because you're thinking about work, and vice versa. I think that's something where you have to have a heart-to-heart with them and let them understand. There's going to be time for them, and you have to make time for them. But there's also time for work. Our time is very, very precious, and we are losing time every second, and you cannot bring back time.
That's absolutely true. There's only so many hours in the day, and you've got to have a plan for how to maximize your efficiency, not only in the workplace, but how you maximize those relationships, your time spent talking to your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife. Everything comes down to having a plan, and those that are most successful are those that have found a way to utilize and maximize their success through planning. Now, like Mark said, it's not something that you just follow the plan to the T. Basically, you're going to have a plan. That's your groundwork. Then, as you adjust on the course of your day-to-day, the plan adjusts with it. You have to be flexible, but you have to stay focused and grounded at the same time.
The rewards and the success that you reap at work is what your family will receive. They're the product of that. Your success at work translates to your family having a better life. It benefits all.
Well, Mark, you said it right on the money there, and we are going to add another voice to this conversation. When we come back after the break, Fred Korn, the secretary of the board at the Salina Masonic Center, one of the directors there, and also the managing director for EMS Educational Management Solutions, will be joining us. We're talking about planning for success on Salina's True Rock Station, 95.5 The Rock. On the Mark with Mark Hamade returns right after this. Welcome back to On the Mark with Mark Hamade, the show dedicated to your success on 95.5 The Rock. It wouldn't be possible without some of our great sponsors. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Reardon Clinic in Wichita, Kansas. Their doctors listen. You can find out more by calling 800-447-7276 or going online to reardonclinic.org. We'd like to thank PKM Steel for their sponsorship, Salina Iron and Metal, serving you from the same location for more than 100 years, and by Hassman Termite and Pest Control, providing 50 years of quality service from the Hassman family. Now I'd like to welcome Fred Korn to the program. Fred, as we mentioned before the break, is the secretary of the board and a director for the Salina Masonic Center, also the managing director for Educational Management Solutions here in Salina. Fred, welcome to the program. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And I know you've got some great information to discuss with us today about planning for success that our listeners will be able to benefit greatly from. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mark and look forward to the dialogue that the two of you are going to bring to our listeners today.
You know, I like Fred a lot. I got to know him through the Masonic Temple, and that made me appreciate what the Masonic Temple does, and it made me get an appreciation for Fred also. One of the things that I was very impressed with and I admire about him is his focus. And what I want to ask you, Fred, is what do you focus on and why?
Well, I think you really need to have goals. You need to have long-term planning goals, as you said earlier, 3 to 5 years out. You need to have medium-term goals, where you're going to be in a year. And then you really need to focus that down to what are the immediate goals that you have, and you need to prioritize those goals. Some of the things that you folks were talking about earlier really revolve around avoiding distractions and focusing on the things that are most important right away, making sure they're done well, and then moving forward from there.
Focus and simplicity. Simple is sometimes harder than complex, and you have to have your thinking clean and pure in order to do that. If you can, Fred, go into explaining what you mean by planning your work, because in order to focus, you have to be able to plan your work.
Sure. Too many of us spend the majority of our time simply working, simply trying to do things. And what happens is, in many cases, you're not very effective because you haven't really sat down and said, well, what are the activities that are going to lead to my success? In many cases, what you find is that a person is simply going through the motions without really understanding how those activities break into specific segments of time, one after the other, to make sure that I meet the goal that I have.
And I want to add on, productivity is never an accident. It's a result of commitment to excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. Now, Fred, go into how do you plan your work?
Well, again, you have to have those goals set. And in my day, I have a lot of distractions like everybody else, a lot of things on my plate, and you need to be flexible. But the reality of it is you need to take the time to really address the issues that bring the most value. You need to spend time in that planning. Look at your goals. Look at the weaknesses. Look at the competition. Look at how you're going to allocate your time and the other resources that you may have under you. And then you need to track that information so that you can make adjustments on the fly as you need to, because too many times we begin moving through, and as you said earlier, that you have a plan, but you really don't buy into that plan and you don't understand how it's working so that you can tweak it and adjust it to be more successful moving forward.
And I think the key that I want to say here is concentration. Don't dwell on what went wrong. Spend the energy on moving forward. Now, in the business that you do, how do you do that, Fred? Because I know sometimes you're expecting something, you work on something, and it goes wrong. So how do you get that out of your mind and concentrate and spend your energy on moving forward and getting the next task at hand going correctly?
The first thing that you have to do is acknowledge what went wrong. You need to acknowledge that. You need to understand it. And then, as you said, you need to put it aside and you need to build from that moving forward. They've always said one of the signs of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. You need to learn from those mistakes and you need to move forward from that. An outstanding baseball hitter strikes out the majority of the time, but he learns from that. He watches, he studies those pitchers so that he's able to make the changes that are necessary so that he can hit out of the park the next time up.
Absolutely. Focus on the journey, not the destination. You have to lay a firm foundation, and that is critical. Can you give an example of how you lay the foundation on something that you've done at work that gave you success in that particular task?
Sure. Anytime that we have a new project that comes up, the first thing that we need to do is understand what does the client want as a final result. We need to then understand what is a really effective timeline. Too many times we get in the habit of not giving enough time to something to make it successful. We push too fast and it becomes less than it should be. So we look at the timelines and then we say, what are the steps and what are the resources that we need to allocate to each and every piece of that moving forward? We look at it, we get through with that step, we analyze it, and we move to the next step.
Imagination, inspiration, dreaming. The excitement of possibilities. Dreaming is a form of planning, not fantasizing. I mentored a young kid who's fantasizing about starting his own company because he wants to be an owner and he wants to be the next Facebook. I asked him about his ideas. He gave me 10 ideas. Every single one idea has already been done. If you have an idea that's a need and it's not out there, that can be successful. But don't do the reverse planning. You want to be a big shot. You want to own your own thing. So you start thinking of different things that can go to market, yet none of them have the ability to go to market or they've already gone. So I'm all for dreaming. I'm not for fantasizing.
And I would even say dreaming can turn into a mission statement. A lot of times that mission statement then can be the North Star. It can keep me from having the distractions draw me away. If I have a good mission statement, if I have good vision planning, even though it's long term, what I'm able to do is hold that as a litmus test to determine whether today's actions and my short-term goals are moving me in the direction that I want to go. Too many times we spend our time doing things and then we don't get where we want to go, but the reality of it is we never had a real vision of how to get there.
Absolutely, Fred. I will echo those statements. A true leader visualizes success, pushes themselves and others towards the goal, and then finally, they make it happen. I think that is critical. Now, in saying that, I will also say you have to be willing to take risks. You involve intelligence to assess the risk objectively and to have courage to make changes and deal with those consequences. Can you give an example, Fred, of when you've taken a calculated risk?
Sure. We're actually moving our offices from Murphy's, California to Salina. That's a risk. We're transitioning our leadership team, but we're doing it with solid foundation and a vision and resources that we feel comfortable that can be successful. So I think anytime you're in a small business, you have to take risks, but those risks should be well planned and well organized and then well executed.
Along with that, I have to say positive thinking and motivation in the face of adversity is critical. If you tend to be the one who says something cannot be done, you need to overcome this tendency to achieve effectiveness and efficiency. You need to have positive thinking. Can you discuss, Fred, how with this particular move that you guys are doing, you've had positive thinking in the face of adversity instead of taking it more as a chore?
Sure, absolutely. In fact, just prior to this move, the recession hit our company just like it hit everyone else. And so it hit our bottom line. But what we were able to do is stay focused on what we knew was a strong business plan, what we knew were products and services that were going to help people. And we reduced the things that we could reduce. We made sure that we stayed solvent. We saved moving forward, but we kept that vision and that business plan moving forward. On the backside of it now, we're seeing a high level of success, and because of that, we're able to do the things now that we couldn't if we hadn't kept positive, hadn't kept moving forward, we wouldn't be able to do right now.
Absolutely, and what I want to say to the listeners out there is, with what Fred just said, sometimes you don't see the end product, but you still believe in the change, and you advocate the change, and you move forward with the changes, because you believe in them anyway. You have to believe in the changes you make and advocate for them, and when you do that, you're not seeing the end product, but hopefully in time you will see the end product that you made the right changes and the fruits of those changes being produced with the end product. And to echo what Fred said also, tenacity is a great characteristic. Trying something 100 ways before you get it right and persisting and not giving up, sometimes it has to happen. So as they're doing this move, I'm sure they've had to tweak it here and there in different ways to make sure it works well for their customers, for their vendors, for their partners, for their employees. Can you give an example, Fred, of one thing you've had to kind of tweak in this to do that?
Absolutely. Timelines change all the time. As we've been transitioning, we've been bringing on new folks. And while I would love to be able to bring on all of the new people that we want right away, we've had to make sure that those folks who are phasing out of the business, we're able to transfer the information from them. We're able to honor what they've done and what they've given to the business over decades. And so we've had to make some changes in our timelines simply because things didn't work out exactly the way that we wanted them to, but the vision was still there, the positivity was still there, the teamwork was still there, the communication was still there, and so we've been able to work past those and still keep it moving forward.
Guys, this is a great discussion. I appreciate you taking the time in here, Fred. Great stuff for our listeners, and I know they got a lot of help. What I took away from that is that pretty much everything you're doing right now, you have a plan in place that you are trying to work through, and as you modify your plan, you're learning what changes were necessary, what needed to be done to progress and move forward into the future, and take notes so that when you have to make the plan again, you'll have those to fall back on next time. And that's just great information for our listeners out there.
Absolutely. Just have to learn each time so that you get better every time.
I couldn't agree more. Well, you want to stick around? We're going to dive into the social media mailbox when we come back. We'd love to have your input.
Sure.
All right. Stick around, guys. We'll go to that social media Facebook question, and we'll have a little bit more for you when we return to On the Mark with Mark Hamade on 95.5 The Rock. Welcome back to On the Mark with Mark Hamade on Salina's True Rock Station 95.5 The Rock. Want to take this opportunity before we get into our Facebook question to thank our terrific sponsors for the program. Salina Iron and Metal, serving you from the same location for more than 100 years. PKM Steel. Hassman Termite and Pest Control, providing 50 years of quality service from the Hassman family, and the Reardon Clinic, experts in nutritional medicine, finding answers, not covering up symptoms. Learn more at reardonclinic.org. That's RIORDAN clinic.org. Well, now it's time for our question, and today it comes from Jordan Lemieux. Jordan writes, in what ways have you personally planned for success, not only for business, but for life as well? Mark, what would you say to Jordan?
Well, I would say I always create a mission and a statement, the driving force behind what I do. What do I want to accomplish? I write a journal entry daily on that. I prepare for the upcoming day, and I take time to reflect on that daily, sometimes hourly, but not every hour, weekly, and at the end of the month. And I look at what I've done quarterly, yearly, and monthly. I try to organize my week with a weekly planning session. I write down my goals and my objectives, and I review that progress very diligently. I plan everything I do. I plan vacations, I plan my work, I plan my employees' work. Everything always changes. It's always going to happen.
Fred, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think having that mission is really important, and then staying balanced is really important. If you're off balance, the world is going to hit you, and it's going to knock you down. The more balanced you can stay, the more you're able to keep moving forward and stay successful. So keeping a balance in your business life, in your family life, in your own personal life, and also helping others. Keeping all of those things in mind and finding time for all of them keeps you from being off balance, and it keeps you so that you can continue to be successful in your own life.
That's an excellent answer there, Fred. And I got a follow-up here from Jordan. She asks how you would recommend doing anything differently or the same for other people. Now, I know this is kind of a vague question, and it can go a lot of different directions. Mark, I'll start with you. What would you recommend others do to follow your plan, or perhaps do something a little differently than the way you do things?
The first thing you want to do, you want to buy something that you can write down everything that you do on a daily basis. That's the first thing you want to do. Then you want to get a pen and a pencil, as silly as it sounds, where you can jot down that information. You want to date every page. You want to sit down with either a glass of iced tea, lemonade, coffee, and really think about the end result of what you want to do, whether it's your job, whatever the heck that is. Write that down. Then you want to write down how you're going to get there. You want to keep track of that daily. Otherwise, you're going to lose focus.
Fred, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think just exactly what Mark said, and then look at it as a journey. The reality of it is that we all have things in our past that we wish maybe had gone differently. We all have times where we hit it out of the park, but all of those things have combined to make us who we are, where we are right now. I'm big on quotes and sayings, and straight lines are made by crooked sticks, and so we all have crooked parts in our history, but we can take those, build on them, use that experience, and move forward from there.
I'm right there with you. I use a lot of old sayings, and I tell people there's a reason that old sayings are old, but you still know what they are, and that's because they're still valid and meaningful, and you can use those as lessons for your everyday life, each and every day, whether you're going to work, whether you're spending time with your family, whether you're working on personal projects outside of the workspace. You can always utilize life's lessons that have been learned by those before us, and as long as you're receptive to taking that message and utilizing it in the way that fits your lifestyle, you'll be much better off going forward. Jordan, thank you for the question. For writing in today, you are going to be scoring a Tucson Steakhouse gift card for $25. And any of our listeners for this program, you can win one too. All you got to do is post a question. We put the question up every Friday on both of our Facebook pages at www.facebook.com/Salina Radio and facebook.com/955 The Rock. Both ways for you to check on our questions. Post a comment. If we use yours on the show, you'll be eligible to win that $25 Tucson Steakhouse gift certificate. Mark, appreciate your time today. Fred, thanks for coming in and sharing some great information with our listeners. For Mark and Fred, I'm Morgan Lillick saying so long. We'll catch you next Wednesday at 5:30 right here on 95.5 The Rock.